Mr. Bart Scott, we're going viral. So Aaron Rodgers has been the face of the Packers for 12 years and counting, but Rodgers actually does his best work in the background with the tradition of photobombing the team captain photo before the game.
I never knew
well.
That is classic right there.
Did you guys know he did this?
Secret, I think he's funny.
I had no clue he was
It
doing
takes
that.
back years.
That's what makes it a
Favre
good
in there
photo
for. Look at that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool
consistency right there, too.
I mean, that's dedication to a craft. That's like
here's a good one when we come out.
The fact that he's doing that right before the game is getting ready to get kicked off.
Shows you where it's headed.
Like, I'm
everybody's
good.
trying to lock in.
Locked in.
He's out there having fun.
I got this.
Rondo,
That's
when he was
awesome.
with the Celtics with the Big Three in Boston, every game they won the tip, when it went to him, he would do a different, bizarre dribble move to start the basketball game.
Yeah.
He'd throw between his legs or do something that, a compilation of the clips. It's like that, something that you don't notice in real time. But he's been doing this for years. Good for Aaron. See, Aaron's a fun guy.
I was
like
just going to say.
Yeah, everyone always hates on Aaron. Yeah.
He's got a better laugh.
That wasn't a good Kawhi. I want to play along with you, Bart.
Yeah.
That was a bad one.
All right, Bart.
Make all your shots.
Take two.
Let's talk Browns, Cleveland Browns. It's hard to imagine back in August that a team with this much talent could implode the way they have. Adding insult to injury, speculation that Odell Beckham Jr. could be on the trade block. Bleacher Report spoke to anonymous team officials who said teams could come calling if this team keeps losing. Quote, the vultures will be circling if the Browns keep sucking. That was a quote. Bart, should the Browns actually consider trading OBJ this offseason?
I would. Because you're not winning with them, so you got to build the team differently. We know that this was a super team, but we've seen that before. We've heard the, come get us and all that stuff from the Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't play well. We knew for this team to be successful, it's going to have to be a lot of people to take less of what they're getting to create a better product on the field, and they haven't been able to really get chemistry. We've seen this with the Redskins. We've seen this with other super teams that can't get a bunch of talent to come together. They're going to realize that they're going to have to really build this offensive line. In 2020, he has a dead cap where you can get an out. It's only $2.7 million of dead money. That's the way to trade him. He's going to be appealing to a team that's looking at that thinks, just like this team thought, that they're one player away from being able to win a championship. Yeah,
Bart, I'm right there with you, man. You're not getting any utility out of Odell Beckham Jr. for a player that has a double-digit cap hit. I mean, you're not getting the production. He's only got one touchdown catch. He's got 39 catches for 575 yards, and that's led to your quarterback being one of the worst quarterbacks in the National Football League in terms of completion percentage, turnovers, any type of metric that you want to look at. Baker Mayfield has been awful. You bought Odell there to try to help your young quarterback, and clearly that hasn't worked. So what's the point in keeping him on your team where he looks like he could be an asset that you can trade away to bring back multiple picks, multiple players? To me, Odell Beckham Jr. is the guy that you look at and say, maybe this can be a part of jumpstarting the rebuild, because this team is not as close as we thought it was after they came off the second half of 2018.
But isn't the assumption that Baker, Nick, is going to be eventually the Baker that we saw last year, maybe with a different head coach? And if that Baker becomes that Baker again, wouldn't you want a guy like Odell matched with him moving forward?
Yeah, in theory, which is why I loved the move this offseason.
Right.
I thought it was a great move this offseason. And Bill James, the brilliant baseball statistician and writer, has a quote that I never forget. And it applies to all sports, which is bad teams have an amazing ability to blame their best players for their worst problems, which is, we don't very often talk about the bad players on bad teams. We talk about the best players, and we blame them even if they are actually the only people doing their job. Odell has done his job this year. Even the biggest Odell Beckham critic, the only real arrows you can sling have to do with fashion. The wearing the watch, having the white shoes when they thought he was wearing the white jerseys and then they weren't, and he had to switch them out. On the field, he's been consistent. He has not thrown any sideline tantrums, even if I was a little worried one might be coming in this latest game when he is open for the game-winning touchdown, and instead you throw it in double coverage 4 yards over the middle of Jarvis Landry. He knows he's not being utilized to the best of his abilities, and he's been a good teammate.
Yes.
He's been I can't call him a great leader because of the stupid stuff with the shoes and the watch, but he has not been a part of the problem in Cleveland. Cleveland needs to figure out, who are we actually, and do we need this what I would consider a luxury item,
Right.
or can we use it to get more necessities? And if they think we can use our draft picks to get the necessities and hold on to the luxury item, because you would be trading Odell at a discount.
Yes.
You're not. You traded Peppers, a 1 and a 3. You are not, I don't believe, going to get at this point a 1 and a 3 and a player for Odell Beckham. So you would be selling low, which you never want to do. For Odell, I hope they do trade him. For Odell's purposes,
You think he would want to go somewhere else?
I think he may request it. I mean, I think he may go to them after the season and say, you know what, I wouldn't be upset if you guys trade me. He thought that the Giants sent him there for his career to die. It looked like it is dying, even though it was a lot of optimism at the beginning of the season about this football team.
And I haven't talked to Odell about this, so this would just be pure speculation. I don't think he'd be devastated by it. Now, I still believe Baker can one day be a very good quarterback in this league. But Odell deserves to play with someone who we know is a very good quarterback in this league. All the great wide receivers, and he has, Kenny, I know you agree with me, he has the talent to be one of the greatest wide receivers.
Fastest to 6,000.
Right. His numbers on what you've accomplished in the number of games match up to anybody in the history of the league. And he's never played with a quarterback who, while he was playing with them, was above average. Eli was above average, well above average once upon a time, not once he got there. Baker was really good last year, not once Odell got there. Now, I know some people would say, well, Odell's the common denominator. I don't buy that at all. I'd love to see what Odell Beckham Jr. would look like with an excellent quarterback. What would, now, this is maybe too optimistic, what would he look like with Russell Wilson?
Oh, I was
you know
right
what I
there
mean?
with you.
What, like with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf having Pro Bowl level seasons, what would Odell Beckham Jr. look like with a quarterback like that?
What would he look like in New England? I know the Patriots have been looking for wide receiver help, and they're not afraid to make a deal, to make a trade. But, I mean, in looking at this situation with Odell, and Nick, you mentioned it, ideally you'd like to be able to hold on to him. But I don't know if that's something that's realistic, because at some point, Odell is going to get frustrated because he is a supremely talented player and the team is not living up to the expectations based on the talent that John Dorsey has put together. Now, you can point to whatever reason that you want to look at, but the fact is, whether it's a lack of institutional control from your head coach, whether it's the 6 inches between Baker Mayfield's ears, for some reason, this Cleveland Browns team ain't right. And to me, that would signal a culture issue. So John Dorsey has got to go about the business of first identifying the coach that's going to be a part of transitioning this team to a culture that's actually going to lead to them being consistently competitive. And to me, you have to ask yourself, is Odell Beckham Jr. going to be on board with that?
Right.
That's going to take some time. That's not something that happens overnight. So to me, it seems like it's an obvious decision that come this offseason, they should seriously consider moving off of Beckham.
Bart, explain the disconnect to me. Obviously, they want Odell more involved. Freddie Kitchens does. I'm sure Baker Mayfield does. Is it a chemistry thing? Is it that, maybe, I don't know, Odell should have been there for OTAs so they could have had this run-up the way he had with Jarvis Landry? Like, what am I not understanding? If they're not making a concerted effort all week to game plan for him, why is that not working?
Well, I don't think they have a clear number one. I think Jarvis Landry has always thought that he was as good as Odell Beckham, but the outside guys looking in would say that he isn't. He's a very good player. He's very consistent, but he doesn't have the tools that Odell Beckham has. Odell Beckham is Jarvis Landry, but he can also run the vertical routes as well. And I think sometimes it's a misconception that he doesn't get targeted, because when you look at the targets, him and Landry is targeted the same amount of times, 67 times, and they basically have the same amount of stats. 39 receptions for Odell for 575 and 555 for Landry. So it's not that, right? It's the fact that in big moments they don't lean to him. In big moments, Odell wants to be Antonio Brown, where everybody knows where the ball is going and he's able to make the big play. He thought he was getting an upgrade with a quarterback that can make off-schedule plays and be able to throw the ball down the field. But the difference was what he was witnessing from afar when he was with the Giants was a team that had a much better offensive line, and the league hadn't caught up to the offense and Baker Mayfield and what he could and couldn't do. So we know that he dreams for the moment to play with one of those type of quarterbacks, and I wouldn't, put it past him to try and work his way out of it, and it's good for both sides because it's not a huge financial commitment after 2020.
The best thing about having a great wide receiver is they're open even when they're not. It's why the #1 wide receivers are saying, I'm always open, throw me the ball. Baker, when he was setting records and winning the Heisman at Oklahoma, or last year when he was having all this success, he wasn't having to throw in super tight windows to guys who appeared to be covered. At Oklahoma, guys are running wide open in Lincoln's system, and last year they were such a good running team that teams had to suck up to handle the run, and then Baker was finding guys running, not all the time, but most of the time, pretty open. He does not yet either trust himself or trust Odell to throw into these tight windows, which is where you get the best value out of Odell. But here's what I know, whether he's on the Browns or not. Odell Beckham Jr. has been in the league 6 years. Next year, he will be playing for his 5th head coach. Tom Coughlin to McAdoo to Shermer to Freddie Kitchens to either traded somewhere or whoever replaces Freddie Kitchens. Either way, Odell's going to be playing for his 5th head coach next season. That's not any way to start a career.
You know what Baker needs? Lincoln Riley. They bring Lincoln Riley back. If they bring him there.
If you Lincoln Riley, you want to leave Oklahoma for Cleveland?
To go to Cleveland?
To the no.
No,
Okay,
and that'll
right.
ain't taking that pay cut neither.
Yeah,
Lincoln Riley making that money.
He's been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
Bart, thanks so much for hanging today. Coming up, did
Appreciate it.
Kawhi Leonard make a huge mistake sitting out last night? Nick thinks so. Next time.